Welcome to Demolition Success Secrets, the podcast that's changing the game for demolition businesses everywhere. Ever wondered how a wrecking ball wielding industry can leverage digital marketing to dominate their market? Well, we've got the blueprints, strategies, expert guests, and more to show you how. Stay tuned, because we're about to blast through the barriers of your business.
Cool. Welcome. We have an awesome guest today. Colin is with us. Colin, how's it going?
You know, living the dream every day, Chayton. Love it.
The demo dream.
That's it.
It's cool. Yeah, it's just like a bunch of excavators, a bunch of scrap. Like, that's the dream I'm envisioning. When you go to sleep, it's like estimates are flying around and stuff.
That's it. I mean, I'm an engineer by trade, so numbers are always flying around in my head at all times. I always try to figure out why numbers are there. So add the estimating portion into that and the scrap portion into that, and then your brain's going 100 miles an hour the whole time. So.
That is funny. How did you jump into the business? I mean, I imagine when you were doing your work, you probably ran into the right people, networking, and you said, hey, man, demolition is where I should be.
Yeah, so it's kind of a crazy story. So went to school to be a civil engineer. Senior year of college, one of the professors approached me and asked if I'd want to stay on and get a master's and work at the school, and they would pay for the whole thing. And I was like, yeah, of course. It was 2007 going to 2008. Obviously, 2008 was a bad year for a lot of people because of the recession. So I decided to stay on board at school and do RATA and get a master's in geotechnical engineering. So when I finished that, while I was in school, I had already been working in construction. So I worked in construction for a couple of years. I was a surveyor for a year. And then 1 year after I was a surveyor, I worked for a company called Testa Corporation, and they did site development and demolition. So I really liked working there, and they were kind of slow around the time I graduated in 2008 with my master's. But they ended up hiring me on anyways, and they stopped doing site development. They only did demo. So I was like, well, I'm already here, I'm working here, so maybe I'll make the transition to demolition and, go from there. And now here we are, 16 years later, and now I own my own company, and I've been enthralled in demolition ever since. And as an engineer, we do mostly bridge demolition, which requires a lot of engineering and a lot of planning versus someone who's just taking down a house or a building. So it's a lot different. Way more engineering goes into it. We're working over live traffic, waterways, railways, anything you could possibly think of, I've worked over. And it's a totally different mindset than just, hey, go tear down that house in that field over there. So,
Right.
It's a big giant difference.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I mean, the general world, not our audience, because our audience is anything but general. They're all demo centric, but the general world, they just think, oh yeah, like there's a building and it just comes down and then it gets cleared and then they're building a new skyscraper in its place. Like it's so far from that.
Yeah, and everybody, the first question they ask is, do you use dynamite? That's like, that's like the funny thing from the cartoons back in the day. It's like, oh yeah, they must use dynamite because they do demolition. Yeah, well, I've done plenty of jobs with dynamite, but I would say 95% of the work I've ever done has no dynamite whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, that would be referring more implosion based, which are not super common. Those are more specialist.
Exactly, and we've shot a couple of bridges and done like underwater blasting.
Cool.
Where you drill into the concrete, you put the charges in, and you blast everything. You create this giant tidal wave, and then the concrete's gone. So done plenty of those jobs, but yeah, I mean that's few and far between. Most of the jobs are conventional with excavators and cranes and picking things apart versus actually just ripping it down over a weekend. I mean, that's a new thing that a lot of these DOTs are going towards to do, the accelerated bridge construction stuff. So then now you're going to be ramped up with multiple excavators and lots of guys on a weekend to go and demo a bridge over 95 or wherever, and clean it all up and then go away and you're done. So it's crazy.
Yeah, I would say, I think probably a lot of people, like you said, the cartoons, I actually never even made that connection until you just mentioned it. But you're right. I would say that. And then, I guess I like watching crazy stuff. So I've seen a lot of the casino implosions, or maybe even arenas in certain cases getting imploded. Like that's, I think, what the average common man out there in the world kind of thinks of. They don't think of, all the other ways of doing things, the more common ways it seems to be.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, everybody wants the big, the CDIs of the world, like the Mark Loazos that do all those implosions, that he goes around the country and around the world, and that's all he does. But they don't realize the amount of prep work too that it takes to implode a building. You just don't go there and put a couple of charges in. You go there and you spend some time there. You drill a bunch of holes in the concrete. You figure out where the charges go, and you probably spend a couple of months for something that takes 100 milliseconds for the actual implosion. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of stuff that goes into these that people don't realize too. Is like the actual prep work of even doing an implosion is much different than you would even imagine.
You know what's crazy? This we're allowed to have fun on the podcast as well as be professional, but we had a video short of one of our clients, and it was so funny because, of course, there's conspiracy theories out there in the world, one of which deals with 9/11, and of course, tragedy that's happened there. I'm sure you've heard it a million times, but that video short, it wasn't super long. It might have been, I don't know, 40 seconds. We said nothing about, 9/11, New York City, nothing. But implosions caught on, and that video went semi-viral for this client, and people are like, yeah, we know how they did building, I believe 7 or 11.
Yes, yeah.
And like, speaking with you and my client who was a guest, there was nothing of that reference, but the internet just went kind of crazy with it. I would assume you would laugh at those conspiracies and be like, guys, come on, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, as a demo guy and an engineer, I mean, at the same time, you think about like what they did and how they planned it out, and they knew exactly what floor to hit and where to get into in order to make the maximum, poundage happen, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, it was just wild how the internet operates. So crazy. But yeah, all right. So now we've heard how you got in the business. How did the business mature from day one relative to where you guys are now? Like, what types of jobs were you first doing? Were you not collecting any deposits, and now you guys do collect a certain deposit amount or percentage? Like, how did that maturation look?
So we mostly do government work. So we're a big DOT client. We do work for Mass DOT, Connecticut DOT, Maine DOT, right? Rhode Island DOT, New York State DOT. We just got a job with Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority. So we've done, we do mostly bridge demo, which is a DOT job, which there's no deposits involved. It's all contracts, and you have to be paid within a certain amount of time. So a lot of these DOTs now, there's no more retainage, which was a big thing when I first started, and you have to be paid within 3 to 5 days of the general contractor being paid. So you send your bill in, they send their bill into the state pays them, within 5 days you're getting paid. So we have only done one private job since we started the company. We've been in business since June of 2022. Did one private job. It was for a friend, and it was an Amazon job. So we knew the money was going to be there. So yeah, we don't really attack too many private clients. I don't do houses. I don't do residential stuff. We do mostly bridge demo. It's a big niche thing, and we bring a lot to the table that others don't because we do all in-house engineering. As I said earlier, I'm an engineer. I actually have a professional engineering stamp in every state in New England and Pennsylvania right now. So when we go to these jobs, we can do all our in-house engineering. We don't have to call anybody else, and we can figure out how we want to do the job and attack it the right way without having to call somebody else and be like, no, you can't do that. We can take a little bit extra. Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm certain we can do that, and put it out there. And it helps us be more aggressive and help the client because now the turnaround times on submittals are much shorter since we do it all in-house.
That's fascinating. Okay. Could you maybe give a little wisdom on, I mean, it's not even a decision that you made, it was just common sense, but could you maybe give some wisdom on companies that don't do that? If they should, or how they could do that? Seems like it's a great idea.
It's the thing that other companies are going to realize is there's not a lot of engineers out there that have common sense and have worked in the real world. So I find, I graduated with probably 30 people from civil engineering, and I would say maybe 5 of them ended up in construction, and the rest of them ended up as engineers. Where they're great engineers, they're very smart, but they can't deal with people in the real world, and they can't deal with construction people because I always joke, like, construction is the one place where a guy with a PhD works with a guy with a GED. There's no other place in the world that happens. And in construction, it happens all the time. So you go to the field and you try to talk to these guys, like you start throwing engineering terms out there, they look at you like you have 10 heads. And then you gotta gain their respect too. Like you can't just go out there and be like, I want you to do this and this. They don't know who you are. So I found that there's maybe 5 to 10 people in the country that do what I do, that have like the background in demolition, but also can do the engineering.
Cool.
So it's a total mixed thing that not a lot of people out there that do it.
Interesting. Would you recommend more do it? Not to compete with you, but it's a value add. It's got to be. It's a huge competitive.
It's a huge value add. I mean, it helps me out tremendously. I'm actually on a committee for the American Society of Civil Engineers. We have a temporary works committee, and I'm on the demolition subcommittee underneath that. So I think it's 25 engineers throughout the country and Canada, of everybody who does demolition plans works together, to try and figure out what the best way to move forward with is in the demolition industry as far as engineering goes. So I sit on this committee. We have meetings 4 times a year, 2 times in person. The rest of them are virtual. And, I've become friends with people in California and Colorado and gaining all these new, ideas and people and stuff like that. So it's like, it opens up a lot of doors. And at the same time, it's like, maybe you can meet somebody else that wants to form a demolition company and wants to work in demo, that already does demo plans. If those other companies could look for somebody like that, maybe that person is out there.
Interesting. Would you guys be open, and maybe you've already done this, maybe it would muddy the waters too much, but with your engineering expertise, would you be open for our audience who may be listening, say, hey, let's use you guys as the engineering side and our audience stick to their demolition aspect? Is that something you've done, or you guys kind of keep it to yourself?
No, so I actually own a separate company, a consulting company, to do just as you just said. I do demolition plans and erection procedures and other construction engineering for a lot of DCs and demo contractors in the Northeast.
Okay.
So that's why I just recently got Pennsylvania, because a client of mine got a job in Philly and was like, hey, we want you to do the demo plan. So I just applied for reciprocity and got the stamp there. And now they're demoing a huge bridge over 95 in downtown Philly.
Wow, amazing. Okay, got it. So you're already ahead of it. I love it. What are the hardest parts and the best parts of being a demolition company owner?
That's a great question.
So the
hardest part I would honestly say is starting up. Like, I didn't know where to start. I have a business partner. He didn't know where to start. So you kind of Google it and you say, all right, how do I form a company? Yeah. So then you go up to Secretary of State, you form an LLC, you come up with a name. That was the most important part to me, was the name, right? So like, we throw all kinds of names out there, and I wanted something that was catchy. And my wife actually came up with Kinetic. And Kinetic is involved with engineering and demolition. There's kinetic energy involved every time you hammer something. So it's like the perfect name. I felt like that was the name. And then you grab your URL next. I'm a big guy into technology and stuff like that. And I felt like grabbing the URL was important right off the bat, so that you actually have a website. Because you get emails from people at like gmail.com or still AOL. And It's like, you don't know if you get taken seriously unless you have an actual URL after your name. So that was important to me. And then the next step was, where do we go next? So I actually have a friend in the insurance business that I've known from when I played hockey when I was 5, that's always called me in the past, hey, I want to be your agent, I want to be your agent. But my other company didn't want to switch. So the first phone call was to him, like, what does it take to get insurance to be a demolition company?
And he's like,
so I had no idea. Most people don't. So it's you apply, and you have to send a resume in. You got to show like what kind of work you're gonna do, and then you have that insurance. But then you're gonna get workers' comp insurance on top of that. So then every state you go to has different workers' comp laws. So now you're getting a workers' comp policy in every state, and now that's what we have. We have a workers' comp policy everywhere we go. So that was an important step. The next step, I would say, is to find a good banker, like a person that that can help you with loans and help you with financing and, all that stuff. That was important. We found a great bank that's right down the street from our office that we love. The people are awesome to deal with. Then an accountant is also important. Someone that knows construction industries, like how to do the proper reporting, and when you work in different states and stuff like that. So we found who we think is a great CPA. And the final thing is a lawyer. You got to have a good lawyer, because you just never know when something's going to go wrong. And luckily, I've been in this industry for so long that the lawyer that we used at past companies, I called him immediately, and he's like, yeah, whatever you need, you just give me a call and we'll make it happen. And, he's always there for me. He's like the one guy you don't want to have to call, but you want to have him on your team, and just in case you have to make that phone call.
Yeah, no, that's sure. That makes sense. It's funny. We've been really lucky recently. We've had some insurance. I would say really good experts, like guys who've been in the business not for 5 years, or not that they service everyone, but they're very, very focused in demo. We've had them, man, the last few days. It's like all of a sudden the insurance insurance people are like, yes, please have me on the podcast. So it's funny, they've kind of focused on it, and they've said, having a good partner in banking, having a good lawyer, and having someone who's good with insurance, of course. It is self-promotion, but at the same time, it's funny because hearing them out, I was like, all right, yes, like that's definitely a part of your dream team in this business. And for you too, it's interesting because a lot of the time, like accountant, CPA, of course, bookkeeping, we have to touch on like collecting money. This is very interesting because my dad used to do a lot of defense contracts, and he was like, hey, in his business, it wasn't a matter of collecting the money. It was just when the money was going to come in with the terms of payment. Did you say earlier, what are the terms that you're dealing with? It sounded really good.
A lot of the DOTs now we have to get paid within 5 days of the general contractor being paid. And honestly, a lot of the GCs are great because they know we're a new company, and they will pay us like within even less than that. Like we can collect checks sometimes if we need the money, like the same day. We'll send a bill in, and then we could send someone down there and they'll give us a check. I found that I don't always think like people are very nice and friendly in Massachusetts and New England or whatever, but I found that people want you to succeed, and they want to help, and they want to do what they can to help you succeed. And I honestly have a new thought about society, about like how great people can be, because it's like you call these people and they're like, yeah, whatever you need to do to make you guys succeed, we're going to help you do.
Cool.
And it's a great thing. And it's like, all right, now we have this new company. It's the same guys who've been doing the work forever. It's just a new name on the door. And, now we're opening things up. So to go back, you asked the question earlier, what's the hardest things? What are the best things? The best things are getting the work. Like when you get that contract, it's an unbelievable feeling. Like when you make a deal and you get a job, it's like the best day of your life every time you get a job. And like we just closed a deal last Friday for a $2.4 million bridge demo job in Connecticut. And like that's a huge job for us. It's the biggest single job we've ever gotten to date. And that's just a great day when you can close those things, and then you can put that on the books, and then now you have a bunch of work. And that's really at the end of the day, like doing the work and getting the name out there and using social media to the best of your abilities to promote your business, and using LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and whatever you could possibly use to get the name out there is really the most important thing. I think is once they figure out who you are and what you can do, then you're going to get phone calls, and it's endless what you can go from there.
That's amazing. And it's funny too, because you guys are very much, of course, you have your other business, but and you may have even more businesses. I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I talked to someone today and they were like, yeah, what do you do? And I said, yeah, I'm in business. And I was like, well, actually, I have a few businesses, but the social media, I find that interesting. How do you find that helps you for the government work? I'm kind of fascinated in that. Is it just the presence? Obviously, I saw your website. It looks very good. What do you notice? The internet really helps you with the government space as well?
It opens up what has happened lately, and I've noticed, is now we get more GCs calling from companies I've dealt with in the past. Yeah, they give us work, but now we're starting to open up new GCs that we never worked for before. So like that's opening up a new line of other general contractors. Now we're moving a little bit more into New York, and now we're getting calls from New York general contractors that I never really dealt with in the past, and now we're getting work out of them. So I feel like a lot of those guys are on social media and they're looking at stuff, and you can see, obviously now you can see who's looking at your stuff on LinkedIn, who's looking at your profile and who's looking at your videos or whatever. So you can kind of get a sense of who's looking at me and who should I reach out to, and what can we do next. And the other good thing about doing permanent contracts is the plan holders lists are always general knowledge, so you can go on any website, see who's holding the plans for a specific job. And now you can call them too and be like, hey, so-and-so called me. I see you're on the plan holders list, so you guys want a quote. Now, you call them, next time around, you're getting an invite from them for a job. So it's like opening up all these new clients. And that's the next step, is like, in order to grow the business, is like, yeah, you need to get more work, but you need to get more clients because there's only a good amount of work for every client. It's not going to give you every single job. So
Mm,
you're going to have to find more clients to get if you want to get to that next level. So that's what we've been trying to do now is like we had our core base of clients. Now we've been adding new clients pretty much every month now. We've got a new job from a new client, and now we're adding to the company, and now we're looking to do probably 4 to 4.5 million this year. When last year we did 2.4, so we're already in a position to do almost double the amount of work in a year. And
wow.
it's only January, it's only February 1st, so it's like who knows what we can get to this year. So
Crazy. Okay. And just so I have it right, you're typically working with clients. The clients are GCs. The GCs are just getting government work.
exactly. Yep.
Got it. So you're looking
Yeah.
to attract more clients who are GCs who are doing government work. You're not looking to work with more GCs that do private work or anything like that.
I mean, we're open to private work, and it's funny. I got a call. You'll appreciate this. So I got a call one day on my phone from a 561 number from Florida. So I pick it up, and the guy was like, "Oh, I'm looking to have a building torn down in Framingham." And I was like, "Oh, we're in Framingham." And I go, "What's the address?" And he goes, 550 Worcester Road, and we pronounce it Worcester. So I knew right away he wasn't from Massachusetts. So he actually owns a company where they own 150 dealerships, and they're all throughout the country, and he just happened to need a building torn down, and now he called us and we gave him a price and we already have the contract. So it's like stuff like that still happens.
Right.
So we're open to the private jobs, but certain clients already have their certain demo guys, so it's like I don't want to go interrupt the business of other demo guys for them to now come and try to interrupt my business. So it's like trying to stay in your lane and do the work that you can do best and let the other guys do what they do.
Right, which is great because a lot of our top clients or, people who come on the show or audience members, their feedback is, like you said, the lanes. Some people don't realize that there are lanes, and I have like ADD, ADHD, so like I want to go on all sides of the highway, not when I'm driving, but just behind the driver's seat of a business or in life. I'm like, hey, why should we just go to the beach? We should go snowboarding while we're at the beach. Let's go to California for the trip or what have you. Yeah, that's great that you acknowledge that, because that literally, in my world, I do marketing, in the world of demo, what we see is it's okay to be diverse to some extent. Like with you guys, you have a very special, smart thing. A lot of people, they're doing, hey, we'll take on any reasonable job. And it's like, all right, I got it. But like some days you're tearing down a house. That's a private job. Some days you're tearing down a nuclear facility. Like, it's able to get you all over, and it's hard to go fast when you're trying to hit 10 lanes relative to just go straight in one lane and take off.
Yeah, and I mean, we know what our niche is. We know what we're good at, so let's stick with that. I mean, yeah, if we had to get fill-in work, maybe we would go outside the lane a little bit, but I I know all these other demo guys. It's a small industry in the grand scheme of things. So it's like all these guys, and I know all the guys in Boston. I've worked with them over the years and stuff. So it's like, they stay in their lane, I stay in my lane. If there's ever a job that comes up that I need them, I call them, or if they need me, they call me. So it's like now we're, you keep these lines of communication open with even the competition that helps you in the long run, because now the owner of another demo contractor, and if you needed a job or if you needed help or whatever, you can call him and he'll help you out immediately.
Right. Yeah, there's a weird kind of, I don't know, maybe it's a high school mindset that competition is competition is competition, but like you eventually become an adult, and in business typically it's like keep your enemies closer type of deal,
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
they're not really your enemies either. I mean, I guess sure to an extent, but like, yeah, the maturation ends up being like, let's be cohesive. If you're big enough, you have your vision in your lane, me as well. Let's just be cool, and I'll cover your back, you cover mine. I'm not going to let
Yep.
you into my secrets, or I'm not going to let you see my books or something like that. But yeah, it's interesting. How could I guess for the audience, how are you guys planning to attract more of those clients? Do you have any like insider scoop? Is that going to certain networking events? Is that doing podcasts? Like what are you guys going to use mechanically to get more of those clients perhaps?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, this is the first podcast I've ever done personally, and I think it's a great outlet. to get the word out there and just have a nice conversation with somebody, to talk about what it takes to start a company and where we are and stuff like that.
And you're killing it, by the way, too. For your first podcast, I would have thought it was like at least your 10th or 20th or something. So you're rocking it.
But yeah, I go to a lot of networking events. Like I'm in Massachusetts, we have Construction Industries of Massachusetts. So a lot of the general contractors go to those dinners and golf tournaments and stuff like that. So I try to go to all those and, just to talk to GCs that you haven't talked to in a while and see guys you haven't seen in a while. Like I've been in construction in Massachusetts since 2002. So it's been over 20 years. So like a lot of these guys worked at the company with me and then spread and went elsewhere. And now they're all over the place. So like now you have contacts at all these different companies because, you work with somebody at one place and then they went somewhere else. So that opens the door, to another client. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, just, trying to have a good conversation with someone or calling someone when you haven't talked to them in a while and like trying to get in their ear so that they know exactly, hey, Kinetic Demolition is looking for work. They want to do this job, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I'm big into, you can see the bid results immediately online. So as soon as someone wins a job, I will send a text or an email, be like, hey, congratulations on the low bid. I'm already in there. I'm already ready to go. Like, whatever it takes. I try to make deals on the demo within like 5 days of them winning the job. Like wow. I get in there early and I call and say, hey, we want to do this job. Can we revise our price? What do you want to do differently? And then, I bang the job out instead of letting it sit for 30 or 45 days when other guys can try to come in and steal the job away. Like I'm all over that. Like bid day is a big day around here. Like anytime there's a bid, I find out who won it immediately and I'm making a phone call right after that.
Yeah, very proactive. Okay, got it. Maybe this will be applicable, maybe not, but something that could be cool, an old school approach is, it's old school and new school. So everyone loves a handwritten letter. Not that you're going to be handwriting a million letters, but if you were to kind of look at the contacts that you're already close to, as well as the contacts you want to be close to, everyone and their sister in business does the Christmas photo or what have you, but you can outsource that. There's companies that do it, for $5 a letter or what have you, and they'll handwrite it for you. But literally having a sequence for the people you want to stay close to, who you already know, and the people who you want to get closer to, and then eventually, and it could, it's going to cost some money, but you guys are running a great business. You could look at that and say, hey, every year I want to spend, even though you don't want to, I am willing to spend $5,000. That's my ad spend. There is no Facebook ads. There is no billboards, of course, but handwritten letters to those who you want to be top of mind with and those who you want to become involved with, and just sequences. Like, you could think at the beginning of every year, uniquely write out 4 individual letters, and then you give this to the handwritten writing companies, and they'll also mail them out. And, you have the sequence for people that you don't know yet, but you want to know, and the ones that you're used to, and they put them in nice envelopes. They get sent to the right address. And then these people are like, whoa, I don't get I'll get a Christmas card or, 2024 or whatever. But, that could be a really interesting way. And again, it's valuable because it keeps you top of mind for those who you want. And it adds you to the Rolodex of people who may not know you yet, or, just you guys aren't acquainted, and you're not having to constantly do phone calls and emails or stuff. That could be an interesting way. We've kind of broken into that ourselves. And it's crazy how deep that goes for people, especially, 40 plus year olds, which frankly, a lot of our clients, that's where they are. And like they actually, the cold email blasts may not work at all, but that nice letter that, has a wax seal on it and everything, they think they're going to get a gala invitation. It could go very far, and it could be very cost effective, especially if you have a list of, 50 people at first and you add 5 people every quarter or something. Could be cool and effective. All right, that's awesome. Are there any wisdoms that you'd share with the audience that you know now that you didn't when you started the company, that you wish you had that intel prior to?
I mean, the biggest thing I've noticed is getting the accounting done correctly right out of the gate. So we started the company, we went with QuickBooks, and I was doing it myself, and then it got too much, and my business partner's wife started to do it, and then we got to a point where it was all over the place and it needed to be fixed. So I would say like get a decent accounting software right out of the get-go that's going to be able to help you figure out where your costs are. Because I noticed with QuickBooks, a lot of the times we couldn't figure out if a particular job was making money. It was kind of like at the end of the year, did we make money versus did this job make money? And now with our new accounting system, we're able to know, yes, this job is making money right now because we have budget set up in there and we can see if we're making the budget and stuff like that, which you can't do in QuickBooks. So my biggest wisdom is, get after the accounting early, get a good general ledger idea of how you want to track costs and, track the cost that way. That was probably the one thing I realized after year one is like, this isn't working. We need to figure out something. And we actually made a hire this year, so this past November, to hire like a director of finance, which she does all the accounting and all the payroll and union reporting and all that stuff. And I felt like that was like the first real hire we needed to have someone that does that, because like I said earlier, we work in multiple states. So now we're a union. So now we go to New York, we have to deal with the New York unions. We go to Connecticut, same thing. Rhode Island, same thing. So now we're signing all these union agreements, and every month they're like, all right, well, how many guys worked, blah, blah, blah. And it's a lot of tracking.
Yeah.
So it's like, that was a big thing. And then the workers' comp audit, like that's another big thing. If you're going to start a company, is, if you're going to work in one state, it's great. But when you work in multiple states and you're getting audited on all these workers' comp policies, it's a lot. So you have to break down every single job you did and who worked there, and trying to go back and figure that out. But now with our new accounting system, it's all set up by the state. So whenever someone wants an audit from Massachusetts, it takes about 10 seconds to run a report versus before the 3-day event of trying to figure out out of paychecks, like what happened. You know what I mean? So that's my biggest wisdom is, that. And also, don't sell yourself short. Like if you think you can do a job, it might be a little bit bigger than you think you can do. Like go after that job. That's some advice I got early on. And we started the company in June of 2022. First contract was in August of 2022 for about $450,000. And then right after that, we got a contract for $1.8 million.
Wow.
For a brand new client, never dealt with before, for a job in Eastern New York. And they gave us the job. We did phase 1 last year. We're about to start phase 2 this year. And it was like, wow, we just got a $1.8 million job. We've only been in business for 5 months now, and we already got this. So it's like, those jobs will come. The stuff will come. It's just, sometimes you look at your equipment sitting in your yard and it's not doing anything, but realize that eventually like that work's going to come, and it's going to come fast. And that's what we noticed is like, now we want to stay consistent. We want to be working every week and have a job every week. And, now we're building the business and getting more work. And now we're getting to the point where, every week we have a job to go to, where before it was like, all right, we have a job, then we wait around for a little while, and then we have another job. So it's like, now you're paying all this overhead and equipment payments and you don't have anything to do. So like that can be frustrating and scary. And that was probably the biggest wisdom I would say. And, keep cash tight is another one. Always look at what's going on with your books, realizing where you are money wise, try and figure out what you can do to reduce spending. If you can do anything, just always be cognizant of what's going on. And it was funny. I met with a general contractor yesterday, and he said, it was one of the best lines ever. He said, "You don't need a fancy accounting system. All you need to do is check your checking account, and if it's growing, you're making money, and if it's not, you're not." So I thought that was pretty good advice. Like, just keep it simple. Log into your bank account, look at your bank account, see where you are. I do it every day. So just to know where we are, who we can pay, and what we can do and stuff like that. So like that's what I would say is the biggest wisdoms I can think of for someone that's going to try and start their own company.
Yeah, really. Yeah, keep it simple, stupid kind of thing. That's funny. I've debated doing that whole check the bank account every day. Does it drive you crazy at all, or does it? It does. Okay. I've heard that way, and I'm like, yeah.
So it's good and bad, right? So you know where you are at all times.
Right.
Being like a math guy, I'm always like, well, what's coming out next, and what auto payments do we have, and what's coming in, and trying to figure out the big picture versus the small picture of the number that's on the screen that's in the bank account. Like that's a small picture versus the big picture of what else is coming down the pipeline, right? So yeah, I mean, I always just log into the bank account, just first of all for fraud purposes, because how like in 2024 people get their bank accounts hacked all the time.
Right.
So it's like, checking your bank account to make sure that's not going on is important, obviously. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I check it a lot, and some days I'll go home and I lose sleep over the fact that like, oh, we only have a certain amount of money in the bank. What are we gonna do? And then then we figure it out.
Right.
So it's you can't really dwell on things. It's hard. I mean, I go home at the end of the night and I do my best to turn it off. I have 2 young kids and a wife, so it's like I want to go home and spend time with them. But as an engineer and someone who's always thinking numbers, it's like always spinning in my head. Like it's always in the back of my head thinking about this stuff. So, and it's funny, my wife is a doctor, so she doesn't get any of the stuff I do. You know what I mean? And she'll come home and explain a patient to me, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So it's like similar ideas. So, but it's good. It's fun, and I enjoy it, and I love owning my own business and being able to do what I want to do, and putting a product out there and showing people that we can do this. We don't have to be this giant corporation. We can do this work.
Yeah,
That's really what it comes down to.
that is cool. Last few questions. Do you think, what would you say? Like, because I haven't worked for a company since 2017. Do you work more time-wise than you did? Okay. All right. I had a feeling that would be
Funny you say that, right? So I started the company in June. I was still working in another demo contractor before I was the vice president there, so I couldn't really just ties. So I kind of stayed working with them for a couple of months just to make sure that things were good with them. And they're still a client for my consulting business, so I still deal with them all the time.
Cool.
So I was working from home, and I worked from home for like a full year for the company. And that was probably the hardest thing I ever did, was working from home, because you just go downstairs, you turn your computer on, now you're working, and there's really no off button when you work from home, right? It's always like, oh, it's always on. So finally this year we got an office space and was able to get out of the house. And then I noticed that I just did the same thing. So I was like, I come to the office at 7 and I stay till 5 and I don't do anything else but work. So what I ended up doing was I rejoined my CrossFit gym, and I go to CrossFit at lunch every single day. And I feel like it's like the best way to break up a day. Like you work from 7 to noon, you go and do CrossFit, and then you come back and you work the rest of the day. You're energized, you've got your workout in, you feel much better, versus just trying to put all those hours in and, not doing anything for yourself. It's
Right.
probably the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, I get that. I do pickleball. I mean, I live in Florida, so it's like a prerequisite. So much fun. I play it at the YMCA, which is hilarious because it's like I'm the youngest person there pretty much every time. And it's Florida, so it's like me and a bunch of retirees, but they're good. It's incredible how good they are. Like that's their life. They play, some of them 6 days a week. I play maybe 2 or 3. And it's funny because that sport, have you ever played like racquetball, pickleball, tennis?
So I do have a funny pickleball story. So my father-in-law in the winters goes to Arizona. So he goes to Arizona and he meets a couple of friends, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna play pickleball." And he's never played pickleball before. And he was a big athlete. He went to Ohio State and was on the JV team at Ohio State for basketball. So he's a big athlete and always rides his bike. So he's playing pickleball, and they're on a court where there's a tennis court in the middle. So he's almost 80 years old. He goes to dive for a ball, hits the tennis net, cracks his head off the pavement, and ends up with a fractured skull. So I'm always telling him now, I'm like, you're almost 80 and you're diving for balls in pickleball. It's like almost probably time to maybe slow it down a little bit. But that's my only interaction with pickleball. And I did see a big article about injuries are way up for the older crowd because of pickleball. So I mean, it's great that they're getting out there, but it's like maybe you shouldn't push yourself to those limits.
Yeah, that's funny. I've heard that too. The knees, the ankles, that kind of stuff. That's crazy. He's that competitive. Has he always been in life that kind of person? Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally.
Crazy. It's a blessing and a curse. That one's like a total double-edged sword. Like it does help you in a lot of instances, but also let's not be cracking our heads.
Exactly.
Oh gosh. Okay. Awesome. Well, that's a good way to pretty much end it. Do you have? I mean, I'm sure we can go on forever. This is a pretty easy podcast.
Yeah.
Do you have any last little wisdoms you want to kind of tail things off with? Then we'll share your info for how people can reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say if anybody is looking to start their own company, just do it. I mean, it was probably the best decision I've ever made. Yeah, there's tough days, and some days you just want to call it and say, I'm all done with this. But overall, it's great. You're working for yourself. You control pretty much everything you do. You don't have to listen to anybody else tell you what to do. So I felt like it's just a great thing. And then what you can do from there, you can build your team. Like I said earlier, I hired a finance person. Now I want to hire an engineer next. So like you can build your team how you want it versus having to go to another company where it's like you might be the A guy, but you have to deal with all the other guys that are already there. So like when you have your own company, you can do what you want. Like my business partner runs the field. He hires all the guys in the field. I don't have anything to do with that. And vice versa. He doesn't come to the office and say, this is what I want to do, because that's not what he does. So it's like a perfect partnership in the way that I don't have to go out to the field and run and do the day-to-day stuff. He doesn't have to come to the office and do any of the paperwork or any insurance stuff or any estimating or anything like that. So it's like, that's another thing too, is like, maybe if you want to start your own company, find somebody else to do it with that, you can trust, that can help you, because it helps. If I try to do it all by myself, it would have been a lot, because I would have had to run the field, run the office, maybe hire a field guy, versus now you have a business partner where it's like, all right, you go do this, I'll do this, and we'll talk once a week to make sure we're on the same page, kind of thing. So
right. And I've always said it's better to have like a chunk of a watermelon than an entire grape. There's something, I have a lot of foreign friends, a lot. And here in America, like people could talk about inequities and different things. Last time I checked, and legitimate statistics, Asian people, including, Chinese, Japanese, Indian, etc., they have more money than the rest of us, by per capita. Like there's statistics of racial backgrounds. And it's so funny because I talk to my friends who maybe they're first, second, third generation, and they're like, yeah, man, duh. Like our families pool money together and we partner on stuff. You white guys, they always make fun of me, like you white guys are always trying to be in it on your own. And that's tough. Like whether it's wearing multiple hats or the capitalization or dealing through cycles, when you have 10 people, and sometimes it could be challenging too, but no matter what, it's going to be challenging. I'd rather have some people to bounce ideas off of and have people who can complement me in skill sets. And then also, I mean, my capital is one thing, but having 5-10 other people's capital, like you could make it through some rough patches and you could do what you need to do. It's just funny how that works, because like everyone, they have different outlooks on that stuff. Us in America, we're very individualistic, which double-edged sword. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that throughout this episode, but yeah, that's cool that you see it, because I know I've seen it with my dad and other people. Partnerships can be a true blessing and they can really be horrible as well, but it sounds like you guys are doing it for the right reasons. You're keeping it accountable, and things are really moving nicely.
Yeah, no, overall, I would say it's going well, and it's going in a positive direction.
That's awesome. Well, cool, man. I'm going to wrap it up. How can we get in touch with you? Obviously, I know how to, but our audience, and who should reach out to you in case they need your services?
Absolutely. So my email is Colin, Colin, at Kinetic, Kinetic, demo.com. You can also reach me on my office phone, 617-203-7770, or check us out on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on Instagram. It's all at Kinetic Demo. And same thing with our website, www.kineticdemo.com.
Awesome. All right. And who's the perfect person? We've talked about GCs. Any sort of type of person that would be ideal to reach out to y'all?
Honestly, anybody who feels like they want to reach out. I mean, I always like making new connections, because you never know, like that person might know somebody else that can lead to a job. So everybody who wants to reach out, definitely reach out to me. I'll take everybody's phone call. I'm pretty personable. I work by myself a lot in the office, so I like to have phone calls every so often to actually break the day up. So yeah, anybody who wants to reach out, feel free to reach out. Whatever I can do to help you, I'll definitely do it.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, Colin, you and I are going to hang out on the line, but thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely, Jayden. Thanks.
Awesome.
That's a wrap for this episode of Demolition Success Secrets. Stay tuned and subscribe for more explosive insights from our upcoming episodes. Until then, continue to blow up your demolition business and make the competition rubble in your path.